Deputy Prime Minister. Deputy Prime Minister comes from St. Michael Southeast. Can I get a clap for that? So I now call on Santia Bradshaw to address you. Please give her a welcoming round of applause.
Pleasant good evening to each and every one of you. A pleasant good evening. Y'all making me feel like I'm on the platform. I gotta shout. I want to first of all start by thanking the former executive of St. Michael Southeast for their commitment and their dedication over the last year. And I want you to give them a round of applause, first of all. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the current executive that has been nominated here this afternoon. Many of them have been serving previously on the previous executive, and I know that they want to be able to continue the works which they have started. I think you all heard of the excellent work that the St. Michael Southeast branch has been doing. The thing about St. Michael Southeast, I suppose the branch is very much like its representative in that we do things without making a lot of song and dance about it, because I believe that at the core, we don't have to tell everybody what we're doing. But what must always matter in what we do is that people in the community can feel the impact of the works, not just of myself, but also the persons who surround me and who support me as well. I said last year, and I think every time I speak on this podium, I will say that Parkinson School it has a very special place in my heart. And it does so because this is the school in which my father has been nominated on several occasions as a representative for St. Michael Southeast. It is also the place where I had the opportunity to become the parliamentary representative for this constituency. And on every occasion that I stand here, I think I feel as though I get a little bit of goosebumps, because it brings back a moment in time where I am able to reflect on the commitment that I have made to the people of this constituency and indeed to the wider country of Barbados. It was here, I remember, just in the outside in the car park. When I look back at those videos, I was a lot younger, probably a lot cuter as well. But I got the opportunity then to indicate that service for me was something that I was really born to do. My father kept me in this community from a child. He didn't spend as much time at home as he ought to, because he was always in St. Michael Southeast looking after the needs of the people. And I was raised by many of you with an understanding that service was the most important thing that you can do as a human being. It doesn't matter, when you go to funerals, you hear all kinds of accolades and titles about people. But one thing my father taught me was that it was about service. And even to this day, when I hear many of you speak of the opportunities that Delisle gave to you, or Brady, as you all know him, it makes me better appreciate all that he taught me in terms of what it was to be a representative in a constituency. And like him, I don't make a lot of song and dance about what I do, because I think that your actions must speak for you, and not so much that, every time you do something, there's a photo op that takes place to be able to show the rest of the world and the country what is being done. But I would not be here without the support of St. Michael Southeast and certainly wider Barbados. I shared online that when I wanted to speak this evening, I wanted to speak about perspectives. I wanted to speak about different perspectives since 2018. And so this evening is not only about sharing some of the perspectives on us being the government and certainly coming to government, but it is also about sharing and engaging with you in relation to issues that may be affecting you as well within the community and certainly wider Barbados. Now, when we came to office, I must tell you, I would go back a little bit. When I became a member in 2018, I was elected in 2013, sorry. And at that time, I couldn't quite understand how I would serve the people of this constituency by being in the Senate. Because all my life, all I knew was that I was going to complete my education, go on to university, become an attorney at law, and I would walk up the steps of Parliament. I never factored in the representation period between 2013 and 2018 in terms of opposition. But what it taught me was that in order to prepare for government, you had to sometimes get a taste of being on the other side, because it is only then that you start to appreciate what it is that you have to do when you get there. It also allows you to not make the mistakes of the then government as well, because on the opposition side, you can see the things that need to be done. And obviously, we take that time to be able to correct those things so that we are prepared for governance. On becoming Minister of Education back in 2018, it took me, I was in about 3 months into office. And many of you are aware that I had a diagnosis of breast cancer. Thankfully today, touch wood, I am cancer-free. I continue to do all of my checkups. You know, people ask me, you know, they're worried sometimes, I think, perhaps more than I even realize, that people are worried about my own health, about the toll sometimes that this office can take a hold of you. And I say to people that, don't worry about me. I studied in Parkinson Resource Center, and I told you that cancer would never take hold of me, because I was going to fight I tell you, I was going to fight the same way that I fought against the Democratic Labour Party. So I think I am proof today that in the same way we fought against them in 2018, that I have continued to fight, because I am fighting for a bigger cause, which is the cause of the people. So when you worry about me, I understand it, I appreciate it, because I know that Barbadians across the entire country have lifted me up in prayer, and I will forever be indebted to the people of this country of all walks of life, across the political divide, for the support then and the continued support that they have given to me. But fret not, I have also learned to balance things. I have also learned to do the things that I can within the time that I can, and the things that I cannot do will have to wait until tomorrow. I have learned to prioritize the things that are important. I have learned to make sure that I spend time with family, because family is really critical in terms of being able to give you that support, especially when you are down. My father is 82 years old, and my mom is in a nursing home. She's suffering with Alzheimer's. And I share this with you because I think sometimes we forget that politicians are people too. That in the midst of everything that we do and how we speak on a political platform, that we are very much experiencing some of the same things that many of you also experience. Sometimes you all hold us up on a pedestal and don't believe that we are experiencing those things. But the truth of the matter is that we do. And we do feel the pain, and we do feel the suffering of people. And we do our best to try to alleviate some of the hardship, because all of you who are here and all of you who are listening are many of the people who have requested of us that we serve, but also that we represent in your name, and in your name we must continue to do what we have been asked to do. So I want to give you the assurance that Santia Bradshaw is still very much strong, that in the same way that all through treatment I continued to work. I used to have, when I was going through chemotherapy, I used to have the port in my chest where the chemo medication was going in, the headphones on my ears, and I would be carrying out my meetings as Minister of Education, because I was determined that cancer would not get the better of me. But what has it taught me? It has taught me a level of empathy that most people will never be able to appreciate. It has taught me that, you know, the long locks down to my bottom didn't really matter. That the titles that I had before coming to public life meant nothing. Because when I got into the hospital in Miami, I was referred to as Santia Bradshaw, 13th March, 1976. I became my name and my date of birth. Every time they took a blood test, I had to recite my name and my date of birth. And it was a humbling experience, making me realize Because I would think I was humble before, but I'm telling you tonight that humbled me in a way that you will never understand. It showed me the things that matter. That the people who send you here are the people who must always matter. And regardless of how you feel on any given day, how sometimes disappointments may come in the same people that sent you here, that your mission must never change, because you must continue to draw the strength from the people who have given you the ability to stand before them and represent them. It has also taught me a level of empathy as it relates to all the people who come to me on a daily basis. And I ain't joking. I tell my colleagues, I feel like the whole of Barbados just called me. I know everybody's business, because everybody believes that because I have been open and honest about my journey, that I can relate to what they're going through. And it's fine. I don't take on more than I need to, but I do understand what people are going through when they get a diagnosis that they didn't expect. You know, I was what I would consider at my peak, now coming to become a minister, and BRAM, diagnosis. Many of you experience it and you share it with me, that you think everything going along good, you're preparing for your children, going back to school, and then you get a little pain, you go to the doctor, and quick so you get a diagnosis that changes your life entirely. Well, I want to say to you this evening that I am listening very carefully to the concerns expressed by Barbadians. I am listening because I've walked the road. I understand what support means, not only in terms of your constituents and your family, but ensuring that we have a public health system that also meets the requirements and the needs of the people of this country. I hear the cries of Barbadians about long waits at the hospital. I hear the cries about people over appointments. They call me to ask if I can get an appointment brought up, because as you can appreciate, after COVID, a lot of things the hospital is trying to get back on track. And I want to say to you this evening that it does, for me, it touches me when I hear these stories. And I have raised with my colleagues in cabinet, up to yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with both Prime Minister and the Minister of Health regarding these issues. Because I do feel that while we have made significant strides in the area of our public health, there is still a lot more to be done. And I have had the commitment from both Prime Minister and Minister Walker that a number of the concerns that have been expressed to me are being addressed and will be addressed. With that assurance, I want to assure you, the public, that they can't silence me on this issue. Because I intend every phone call I get, every message I get from whoever I get, I am going to make sure that we make the improvements to the public health care system that are needed. We started on a journey when we first came to office under Lieutenant Bostic of trying to increase the number of hours that the polyclinics were open. We've been able to accomplish that. But again, we can do more to make sure that Bajans are comfortable going to the polyclinics to go through fast track, to make sure that they're not overcrowding the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Because I must tell you, in some cases, there are situations where people have, I think during COVID, a lot of people got lost to the healthcare system. People were afraid, especially our elderly. And we need to get back to a point where people are checking on their health. I can tell you, Delal Bradshaw is here this evening, my father. And there is not a morning that I don't test his sugar to make sure that his blood glucose levels are in order. I have cut out all the sweet drinks and all the pork chops, all the things that made him money back in the day at Brady's. I have cut those out. Daddy had a stroke just before, it would have been before 2018, I believe, 2013. And I remember, like many of you, calling for an ambulance, and there wasn't an ambulance available back then. I know that feeling. I know that feeling when your life flashes before you because you're thinking that your loved one or yourself gonna die because there isn't an ambulance available. But he is testimony, because he was able to pull back himself, because I think he wanted to get to see me win the election. So he has something to live for. And he is testimony that, and I share this with you sincerely, that you can change behavior. It is not impossible because he ate all the bad things that many of you do. But with the right attention and the right care, he's been able to reverse a lot of the things that he know ain't good for him. And I want this evening to encourage Barbadians. It's okay to focus on the hospital, and as I said, we're going to fix what is wrong there. But I want to encourage you as well to pay attention to your health. You know, there's a saying that the health of a nation is the wealth of a nation. And I'm of the view that regardless of all the big, bright, beautiful buildings that we build out and all of the pretty economic talk that we may talk from time to time, how much we have in reserves, none of that don't matter if you don't have your health. You can't carry the money to your grave. And if you don't have your health and you don't look after yourself, you can't look after nobody else. These are some of the lessons I have learned. And I will stand here this evening to share them with you because I'm worried about the number of people on a daily basis that tell me that they have suffered with a stroke. They've suffered with a stroke because they have also not looked after their health. They've not eaten the right things. They've not exercised. And Dad will tell you that I'm always on his case because he would like to spend all day watching CNN, talking on the telephone to all of you, instead of doing the things that are necessary sometimes to walk the corridor or to just step outside. But I stay on him, and I encourage you to not only do it for yourself, but to encourage others, because we all are mindful that we're getting older. We have an aging population. As I look at my branch list, I can see the number of persons who used to be able to come to meetings incapacitated because they can't attend before. And you know what is interesting for me? Is that many of the people who are unable to attend the meetings now are people who held me as a child, who lifted me up, who in this same hall were the individuals who were shouting and screaming during an election campaign. And therefore, I have a responsibility to say to you tonight that y'all can do better in terms of caring for your own health. We will fix what we have to do in terms of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, but I'm saying to you tonight that you also have a responsibility to do the same. I can't stand here tonight and say to you, I haven't seen the changes at A&E, because I have. When I visited 2 weeks ago, when we had all of the issues with the concerns in the public domain, I saw the addition, I think it's about 9,000 square feet of space that has been added. And it's been added to increase the capacity for people at the hospital to be able to treat to the patients. It didn't happen overnight. It happened throughout the period of COVID. And what was interesting is that even though the night that I went, the place was overcrowded, the waiting area was overcrowded, the inside was overcrowded, the second floor was overcrowded, and the third floor was overcrowded. What stood out in my mind was the improvements that had been made. There were a number of areas there where persons, they had created some areas for isolation, especially coming out of COVID. And I think many of you can appreciate the importance of us going in that direction, because we don't know if there will ever be a pandemic of that magnitude at all, or if we need to isolate people. But the truth is, on that night, I saw those spaces having to be used because of the increased number of persons who were visiting the A&E in order to be attended to. And while I was distressed in some way by the numbers, there was a part of me that understood as well that the government had in fact been working to build out the facility, to make sure that it could take the capacity. You know, interesting enough, in all of that time over the last few years, we've also built a new hospital at Harrison Point. And sometimes when we are angry because we don't get the delivery of the healthcare as we would like, we forget that not only were we building out a facility at Harrison Point, having to take an abandoned structure, and I don't know if you recall seeing what it looked like before, but we had to take that from nothing and build it out so Barbadians could survive. Many of us forget, right? Because I ain't gonna say we got short memories, that we just forget at times. Because sometimes when you are in that moment where you're feeling what you're feeling, you forget the road that you have traveled. And I say to you that just as I don't forget the road that I have traveled to be here standing tonight, I say to you, let us not forget the journey. What we inherited in 2018 must never be forgotten. We have a lot of people parading up and down about how things are broken and how we ain't fixed this and we haven't fixed that. And I will say to you, you're right, we ain't fixed a lot of things, but there are a lot of things that this Barbados Labour Party administration has fixed. And if we are honest with ourselves, we found a QEH in shambles. We didn't inherit money. We didn't inherit a system that was working. But we have had to put all resources out there to be able to get the systems at the hospital and the polyclinics working. Is it perfect? No, it's not. And I continue to ask you, agitate, yes, for what it is that we need to see happening. Because I've said to them at the hospital, more empathy. We need more empathy. We need more, and this is across the society. This is not just QEH. I feel sometimes like we have lost that empathy that made us Barbadian at our core. Where we don't stop to tell people why they are waiting long for a service. We don't stop to ask them, ma'am, sir, how you feeling today? You don't ask the old person, do you want to have this seat? Because they're standing too long and they look like they're in pain. I say to you that we got to get back to those basic things that we all know is the Bajan way. I don't think I was raised any different from anybody. But I was raised by a grandmother who taught me empathy. She taught me right from wrong. She taught me compassion. And she was a very spiritual woman. So she always taught me to put God first as well. I say to you tonight, we need to get back to some of the basics where we care about people and we care about community. You know, Prime Minister is always talking about the days when people used to go outside and they used to clean up outside and around them. Now the fastest thing that we do is we say we got to call for somebody to provide a service to remove the bush from the gutters and to remove the bush around our house. Yes, we can do those things as a government. But what about the responsibility that is to come from the personal responsibility of individuals? I used to see my grandmother and the lady next door taking turns sweeping out the gutters, using those old wooden brooms and cleaning the road. There were no ash workers back then. It was simple, basic pride in their community and the surroundings that they had. And we have taken a lot of responsibility on board as a government. We brought in the ash workers when this country looked like it was in a total mess. When Bush was all over this country, we made sure that we engaged not only the ash workers, but we also engaged the 720 workers, which started out, by the way, as 320 workers. But because of the needs and the demands, we went to 720 workers. We didn't say we don't have the fiscal space to be able to bring on people to help keep Barbados clean. And we carried those individuals for as long as we could within the ASH program. I stand here tonight to tell you that many of those ASH workers have taken up the training that we provided at the various institutions to be able to better their skills. I stand here tonight to tell you that even in relation to the Gabion building, and I single that out because that directly impacts on my ministry. We have a number of persons who entered those programs to learn how to build gabions. Gabions are needed in particular in the Scotland district. And many of them will shortly be brought back on to be able to assist not only the Complant project which is going on in the Scotland district, but to assist the wider ministry to be able to help us to advance the programs that we have in road rehabilitation across this country. That is how you make transformation happen. You know, there was a lot of talk, oh, we're going to abandon these persons. Yes, the process can move faster. The process can always move faster, and I'm always one who's agitating for it to move faster. But I can also tell you that there have been successes coming out of those programs where people have been integrated and reintegrated into gainful employment as a result of those same programs of training as well. I want to say thank you to the team in St. Michael's Southeast, both the NCC team and also the NHC teams that keep this community clean. I started it when I was in opposition, because back then the Democratic Labour Party didn't do nothing to make sure that St. Michael's Southeast was clean. And I recall getting bobcats and excavators and all kind of things to get people's properties cleared. I remember in Golden Rock, many of you were there, we had about 17 truckloads moving people's belongings and stuff from and the trash from within the community to be able to ease the pressure within the households. We didn't come to office and leave certain areas like Golden Rock in disarray. If y'all remember, Golden Rock was an absolute mess, garbage all over the streets. You passed there, you could not believe that people lived in that community. Since this Barbados Labour Party has taken up office, we've started the transformation of the Golden Rock area. And for those of you who pass there, you will see, with the assistance of a charitable entity from overseas, they have started to do the murals on the wall in the Golden Rock area, acknowledging a number of what I consider the fallen soldiers within this community. Because we need to bring life back to our communities, create spaces that our people feel safe in going. And I'll tell you, in that particular community, why this project has been so important is because we lost several individuals to gun violence. And we took a conscious decision that we would improve the surroundings. We knocked down the shed. We built back a facility for the youngsters to be able to lime and to engage. We removed all of the old cars and the vehicles that are in the community. We didn't come to office and say, well, you know, we ain't got enough fiscal space, we can't do anything. We also took it further because we recognized that in areas like Golden Rock, which is the most densely populated area of this constituency, that we had to find a way to ease the pressure, because the pressure in the households leads also to the issues in terms of criminal activities within our communities. And we've given the commitment that in the Lower Bernice area, that we have identified some lands which will very shortly, once the environmental impact assessment is completed, be able to provide an ease of the pressure for the people living in large families within the Golden Rock community. That has been our commitment to you. But we didn't stop there. Just a few months ago, thanks to the advocacy of a young man in the community who has followed on what my father and other representatives have requested, including myself, to be able to bring attention to old vehicles in St. Michael's Southeast and all the old fridges and all the old equipment that lies across the road. We were able to work with National Housing because I keep telling them the estates belong to them. And therefore, if these things are impacting the lives and the livelihoods of people, then we have a responsibility to keep the spaces clear. And we've seen the starting of the areas of Phillips Road in terms of cleaning. We've also, they were telling me just this morning that they've started the process of sending out the notices, because there are other areas as well that are on the list that I've provided to them where we need to see vehicles move within this constituency. I think when that issue in Phillips Road happened, it was clear that the public of Barbados is on the side of the government as it relates to getting the country clean. And I know that the Attorney General presently is working on a piece of legislation that would cause persons who own lots which have been abandoned and which become a nuisance to other residences and to communities to have to pay the penalty. Because if you don't remove the debris and keep the lots clean, there will be a penalty for not so doing. But what it will also do is that a number of the persons who used to clean and were on the ash worker program will have the opportunity, by virtue of this new system that is going to be implemented, to have gainful employment yet again. Because if you are going to be penalized for not cleaning your lot, then you have to hire somebody in order to clean it. That is how a government gets things going and corrects some of the things that are affecting this country. I want to talk to you this evening about a few other things that, since we came to office, that we have had to focus on. We have been, and just last Friday, we announced education transformation. It has become a buzzword over the last few, I would say, the last few years. But I welcome the fact that the current minister, the Prime Minister, and the team at the ministry have found it fit at this point to be able to launch such a program. Brady gave me a document this morning on a manifesto from the Barbados Labour Party, which spoke to the abolition of the common entrance examination. This is from the 1970s. You can understand how long this issue has been outstanding. And it often feels as a government as though all we are doing is clean up. All we are doing is completing the things that from back in the 70s, there was clearly a vision by this Barbados Labour Party to fulfill. But because we have had administrations who did not appreciate the need to complete the vision, we find ourselves now with this particular administration having to complete what was started before and what was spoken about before. So we have a situation where we know that we need to be in a position where your children have the opportunity, regardless of whether they're academic or not, to be able to achieve their full potential. You can't do it in the existing system, because the existing system is often not built out for children who are different, who are differently abled, children who are autistic, children who have special needs. And we understand that you can't just, as the Honorable Minister said, you can't just be the lucky child who a teacher pay attention to. You have to make a system and to create a system which allows all children to be able to reach and to achieve their true potential. That is what we came to do. Our motto as the Barbados Labour Party is to make life better for all Barbadians. We didn't say we were going to make life better for the people who got money. We didn't say we were going to make life better for the people whose children going to private school. We said we came to make life better for all Barbadians and all Barbadian children. And therefore, while some may be critical, I heard the leader of the Democratic Labour, what is he now? The president of the Democratic Labour Party, indicating that they weren't consulted. You know, I opened my paper. I mean, I'm happy to see what is the start of a consultative process. But just like what happened with pensions, I see the same thing, the same rhetoric taking place again, where the president of the Democratic Labour Party is saying they haven't been consulted. And I can tell you that there's no Barbados Labour Party administration that has ever consulted as much as this one. We consult and go back and consult and then come back and consult again. And it isn't that we are trying to get total consensus, but we also appreciate that sometimes all different views must contend. That we may not all, the 30 of us may not know all the right things to do. We offered them to the Democratic Labour Party to participate in the Senate. They come with all kinds of excuses. They don't want to participate. The Prime Minister can't offer them nothing. All kinds of issues came up. I say to you, it has been the gesture of this administration to allow the Democratic Labour Party to participate. And if you look at even our social policy and our reforms, which Minister Humphrey is leading the charge on, you will note that even former ministers of the Democratic Labour Party and even members of the Barbados Labour Party, former social policy ministers, have had the opportunity to weigh in on the transformation of our social policy, our welfare policies. There's a reason why we do it. Because just because we are the government today doesn't mean that we know everything. There may be things that because you were the government 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you may appreciate better when you are no longer the government. And we are respectful enough of opinions to reach out and say to them, come, give us your ideas. When I spoke to Minister McConnell, I said to her, but is this true that y'all didn't consult? Minister says, Satya, that is not the case. They were involved in the stakeholder meetings. The stakeholder meetings involved the principals, it involved the students, it involved the teachers, it involved the unions, it involved the Democratic Labour Party. And why? Because they're all stakeholders. What they seem to have a beef with is that rather than us coming and saying, here is the proposal and it is a done deal, they're saying they must have the proposal so they can nitpick and go through it before they give any ideas to be able to allow that document to be formulated. So everybody else has given their ideas towards education reform. But the Democratic Labour Party, who wants to be, well, I would say they want to be an opposition, don't see it fit to be able to put forward ideas to help to inform a process that now must begin in terms of consultation. Well, it may be true, they may not have the ideas, but you know, a party that its legacy has been decimated in terms of its position on education is not surprising. It is this Barbados Labour Party that had to restore the payment of tuition fees for all of the university students. This Barbados Labour Party. Because a Democratic Labour Party didn't have the ideas and the know-how in order to figure out how do we allow our people to be able to get educated. They didn't care about the impact that it would have on mothers, working mothers, having to make a choice between whether they went to school or whether their children went to school. They didn't care about that. So the truth is, I am not surprised that they are short of ideas and are nitpicking on every single thing that we do in relation to education. Bajans, one must wake up. This is a Democratic Labour Party administration that when I remind them that Barrow was who gave us the free education, I recall being in the House of Assembly and being told by then Prime Minister that he never said that education was to be free forever. They told me that because I could not understand how a party that had uplifted a country in terms of education and where we were on the same page with them in terms of where we needed to go as a people could then come back and be so callous and carefree about taking away the right of our people and in particular our young people to be able to have a tertiary education. That is not the Barbados Labour Party way. And I want to encourage you tonight. I know a lot of people may not understand all of what we speak of in terms of the reforms. Sometimes people are more concerned about which school the children are going to. And I say to you, those things become irrelevant in a 2023 Barbados. It is no longer about the child being the doctor or the lawyer. But many of you will realize that we live in an age of technology where we have to prepare our young people for the future. But we also have to make sure that in our transformational agenda that we deal with the children who leave in school without certificates. Because we can't forget them in our transformation. We can't leave out the people who have skills but may not be academic but are gifted in some way, and we need to be able to tap into their true potential. One of the things that for me stands out as Minister of Education was the introduction of robotics into our schools across all levels. And when I visit the Ann Hill and the Irving Wilson School in my constituency, my heart is pleased. Because when I see children with special needs being so passionate about being able to create things, to be able to come up with concepts that are Barbadian, and have such an interest in being creators of things and not just consumers, I know that this Barbados Labour Party is doing the right thing by the people. Don't let the narratives that are being pushed in the public domain stray you from what this party and this government has been doing for the people of this country. We all know where we have come from. We know we were in the bosom of being devalued. We know that we had downgrade after downgrade. You know, people, it's almost as though people don't talk about these things anymore. They don't talk. Because we only remember a COVID period where we were locked down and we got frustrated. But we don't remember the difficulties and the challenges that this administration also had to face in the early stages of its administration. I recall, you know, people say, you know, Sandy, the road's bad. They complain about the potholes. They complain that we aren't getting the program executed fast enough. But let me just remind you that just as with healthcare and with education that were left to languish, roads were no different in this country. And what made it worse is that we have 30 seats, so we got to make sure that we divide up all of the roads across every community to make sure everybody get a little piece of the pie. The last administration made sure that only in constituencies represented by the Democratic Labour Party that they were properly serviced in terms of the road infrastructure network. Bajans forget this. So Bajans expect me to wave a magic wand and allow all roads across Barbados whose condition is far from adequate to be done overnight. And I say to you, sometimes you have to pause and reflect. Since coming to office, we've done 9 of what we call the global roads under the IDB program. Y'all have driven on them. East Coast Road, we had challenges down there. We had challenges with a number of them. A lot of the challenges were also due to the weather, because we are also now susceptible to climate change in a way that we were not before. And if anything, you should be telling the Democratic Labour Party that they should have fixed the things when the weather wasn't so bad, instead of leaving it for us now that the conditions are more severe, and we have to now take, you know, an opportunity to fix these things in the limited time frame that we have. Many times the projects get started, but then they have to stall because of the weather as well. And all of us living in Barbados can relate to this if we take the time to appreciate what is happening. If you're going to turn cement and build something at your house, you can't build when the rain falling. But everybody know this. So how are we to build roads when the conditions on the project are not sufficient to be able to allow us to do so? It therefore means that you have to appreciate and understand what we are working with as well. And that is not to say that we don't have our challenges internally in terms of execution, because you all know me, I talk it straight. Thankfully, Prime Minister listened, and in the last budget announced that we will do the supervisory training to ensure that a lot of the supervisors, not just in MTW, but across all of government, are properly placed to supervise projects, because that has become a bugbear to many of us across every ministry, making sure that people are accountable, making sure that you don't have to supervise the supervision. So we have had to step back and to say, what are the things that are needed in order to execute a number of our works programs? But we are coming to the end of the IDB program. For those who go to the crane, you will see the changes in terms of the route to the crane. The accommodation works are in progress as well. You will see Carmichael Road also having been completed, Boarded Hall, and I can go on. Yorkshire as well. Yorkshire is on the CAF program. And that is another program where, in addition to being able to improve the road infrastructure network, we have also taken the time to improve and to strengthen the human resource capacity of the Ministry of Transport and Works as well. Because there's no point building roads, but then after you build the roads, you don't have the technology to be able to maintain them, and you don't have the human resources to be able to properly maintain them either. So we've had to invest in being able to have the mechanisms to collect the data, to be able to allow us to know, say to the public, these are the roads that we are doing and this is why. Because I hear you constantly about why we dig up this road and we didn't dig up the other road. And I say to you that the arrival at the destination as to which roads to do has often been flawed. Because it has been dependent on who complained the most, who calling on the calling program, and keep the most noise, and which moderator complaining because they want this road done in their community, as opposed to us being able to have the data which says exactly which road services are deteriorating and which road services roads are being used frequently and therefore need to be repaired quickly. That is the direction that we must go. Ask the Democratic Labour Party what they did in relation to that, in relation to road infrastructure. Because it is this administration that had to pay attention to the Scotland district as well. Because many of you may not realize that the Scotland district constitutes almost a sixth of Barbados' landmass. It has been neglected. We talk about the people in the country. We're talking about the people often who feel as though they are the forgotten constituencies. And why? Because they voted in many cases for the Barbados Labour Party. And we have been able to enter, on coming to office, into an agreement with the People's Republic of China for $230 million to be able to build out road infrastructure in those communities as well as bridges. But you know what is interesting? People believe that because we have signed the loan, and we have made the announcements that we are in a position the next morning to see all of these roads completed in real time. It don't work so. It does not work that way. We have had to spend every single week with the Chinese team, the engineers, the supervisory consultants, the designers, everybody, to make sure that we understand very clearly what is below the surface, do all of the geological tests, to make sure that we are not wasting our time building in areas that are going to give way with time or because of the weather. So there are a lot of things that have to happen before you can actually start to see the changes in terms of the infrastructure within the Scotland district. And I ask Barbadians to appreciate that just as we've done the 9 global roads across the country, the Scotland district is starting to take shape. We have focused on Shorey Village and Vaughan's Road. We have also started White Hill. Many of you will recall that White Hill was like a forgotten area. And regardless of sometimes the complaints and the furor of the residents in that community, they are right to feel the way that they do. Because they were forgotten by an administration that did not care about them, did not care about how they got the garbage trucks up the hill, didn't care about their businesses within the community and how they would be able to service the trucks to come to their businesses. They didn't care about road infrastructure or even relocating people who were affected by the slippages within the Scotland district and in particular in the White Hill area. But we, as a Barbados Labour Party administration, have started that process. Phase 1 has started. We're on to phase 2 as well of the Scotland District project in relation to White Hill. And we will leave no stone unturned until the White Hill area is complete. I stand here tonight to tell the people of this country that the road rehabilitation program is on its way. You're going to complain. Yes, I appreciate the complaints. We're working on making sure we have the pothole patchers and we make sure that we have the teams built out in order to be able to execute the works quickly. But you know, sometimes every time we do the pothole patching, the rain does come and wash back out the holes. And the truth is, when I look at the volume of the roads that have deteriorated, not the CAF program, not the IDB program or the Complant project alone will get us to where we need to in terms of rehabilitating these roads within the next few years. It is going to require deeper finances to be, and certainly capacity. Because it's okay to say you want the roads, but you also have to be mindful that we must also have the human resource capacity and the contractors on island to be able to do the work. Because the truth of the matter is, in its present form, we don't have the full capacity to be able to build out the roadworks program in the way that we would like. We are working with what we have and the resources that we have. But if you look at the best case scenario, it will still take us more resources and more capacity to be able to get all of the infrastructure up to the level that we would want it to in real time. So what does that mean? It means that we focus on the things that we can do at this point in time, and we work towards being able to get additional financing and to build the resource capacity to do the remainder of the works that have to happen. It's no different to what we're doing in health. It is no different to what we're doing in education. But people have to understand that you can always want what you want, but you always also have to know what is available for us to be able to get what we want as well. And we have had to prioritize the urgent areas. You know, just, I think it was yesterday morning, we had the reports of Mellows Hill, again, the slippage within the St. Joseph area. These are things that on a daily basis we are grappling with, and we are having to send teams in to be able to deal with these areas. That is nothing that is on the current works program. But every time that we tackle an area, we are finding, especially with the vagaries of climate change, that we're having to make the adjustments in terms of the road works program. Water is no different. I recall, you know, looking at the mains replacement program for the country, recognizing that we have mains in this country that are over 200 years old. Most of us only know people who are 100 years old, so you can understand how old these mains are. And we have had to grapple with a situation where the last administration didn't see it fit to replace the mains in the way that we are now having to do. As much as they talk about, oh, this community don't have water, or it has brown water, or we're not working fast enough. Cast your minds back to a time when this administration inherited contract after contract on coming to office that was signed on the eve of an election by the then administration that we have now had to come and to undo and to renegotiate to be able to get things moving at the Barbados Water Authority. Tell them, talk to you about that. Because it galls me to know that people can't get water. It galls me to know that people getting brown water through their taps or they can't wash their clothes. Knowing that there were people who were given the responsibility of having the interests of the people of this country at heart, but chose to do with the money that was being collected by garbage, sewage contribution, and all the other things, to put it in the hands of others to be able to profit off of the backs of Barbadians. Tell them, talk about that. Because I hear them talking about how Prime Minister sent me to the Netherlands to go to privatize water. What stupidness am I hearing? You feel you could take up Brady's daughter and send she to Netherlands to come back and tell the people of Barbados I'm privatizing water? Brady's daughter? Brady child? But he's still alive. It cannot happen. They are behaving as though they have no understanding and no education. And it bothers me that we have people parading out there making these statements, and then people will come and say, wait, Santia, you plan to privatize the water? Well, I want to make it clear there is no intention to privatize water in this country. What we have had to do on coming to office is to restructure the Barbados Water Authority. We have had to make sure that as a state-owned enterprise, which has been sucking off of the public purse, we have had to make sure that we do the restructuring and put the necessary people in place at the level of the board of management to be able to turn the institution around. People do not value water. And this is any country in the world, you will find people don't value water resource. Many people in this room don't even understand where the water comes from. We just know that when you turn on the tap, that you must get water. But you don't sometimes understand the resources that are necessary to be able to build out the infrastructure, to make sure that the water that is coming through the pipes is water that is sanitary, that you can drink. And we have taken a position that it is not about privatization. It is about making sure that we go to countries We take our technical teams to be able to appreciate the best practices in water resource management. You cannot have a prime minister of this country going all across the world talking about climate change and the impact on water. And we do not lead a delegation to go to the Netherlands to find out how do they deal with water resource management so that we can get some of their best practices and their technical expertise to help the Barbados Water Authority. Well, we would be mad. We would have been going to Israel if we didn't have all of these issues going on as well in Israel at this point in time, because we have sought out the best in the business across the world, and they have sought us out as well. So I want to put to bed tonight the foolishness that is uttered from members on the other side who do not understand that this Labour Party means business. That replacing mains must be a priority. We lose over 40% of our water because of breaks at the mains, all of the burst pipes all across the country. Every time that we fix areas, we replace mains. Another area down the hill just bursts. Because of the pressure coming through, it bursts the other mains that are obviously deteriorating. Bajans, you got to understand it. We are moving fast and foolish. We want to be able to accelerate that program to make sure that we can minimize the amount of breaks within the system. But we are also mindful that while we are replacing the mains, we also are dealing with the road infrastructure program, which also requires the Barbados Water Authority, while we are doing the road rehabilitation, to replace the mains on those roads. Because if we don't do it now, and if we don't allow MPC to come in and the telecommunications to come in to ensure that they are in a position to lay their pipes, y'all will be the first to say the minister got the people digging up the road again. Or as the meme show, Barbados Water Authority waiting around the corner to see when the road work's finished to go and dig it back up. I hear you, and I'm saying to the people of this country that we are trying to avoid the practice that has taken place where we do a road and then we dig it back up. We're also trying to avoid the practices of doing a road and then you realize, oh shoot, the village ain't got no natural gas. And then we got to go and dig up the road again to cut the road for natural gas. But you need to understand it requires coordination. Because if we don't have the level of coordination with the utility companies, we can't get it done. And many of you may not be aware, but we myself and Senior Minister do get chair a meeting every 2 weeks with the utilities companies to try to make sure that whether it is the sewage projects, whether it is the housing projects, whether it is the road rehabilitation projects, that we put ourselves in a position where every man has to account for his entity and what they are doing and how they are going to execute. That is what we have to do on a daily basis. Ask the last administration if they understand what we are doing. Because none of these systems and structures existed because people were too focused on what they could get from the consolidated fund. They weren't focused on how it is that they can make life better for Barbadians. I tell you, when they want me really talk, I telling them, leave Cynthia Bradshaw alone. I have come to serve the people of this country, and that I will do. Nobody can send me far and yonder to go on wild goose chases to try to privatize water. When I know how important water is to the people of this country, we have put in reservoirs in this country to be able to allow people to get water supply. We are focusing now on the north of the island because we recognize the challenges that the people there are having. You don't hear St. Joseph crying out the way that it used to, and you don't hear St. John crying out the way that it used to. Every now and again you get issues, but it is not of the magnitude that existed before 2018, and Bajans need to be reminded of that. We will continue to execute the program. I don't respond to much because as far as I'm concerned, my work will speak for itself. I ain't got time to be arguing with people and to be distracted. My focus is to get the roads done, to make sure that people have better water supply in this country and to make life better for Barbadians. That is what y'all sent me here to do, and that is what I intend to do. But But I will not be distracted by the smoke and mirrors, by people who have no ideas to offer to the country, who cannot even settle their own differences internally, but seek to create all of these issues that don't really exist within the Barbados Labour Party. I say to you, the people of this country, you have to be more discerning. Everything is not right. Everything is not perfect. But I assure you that the Cabinet of Barbados, the Prime Minister of this country, is listening. We are taking stock of where we are. We hear the disgruntlement from time to time. We are not deaf. And I'll tell you this, if we were deaf, we would not be having the Paris Speaks every single month in constituencies. You all need to realize that an administration that is prepared to constantly go back to the people, to take the licks from the people when things ain't get done, is an administration that is willing to face the people and to say, well, we didn't get this done, but we're working on this. Those don't come that easy. People just hide from the public when they haven't executed what they're supposed to. This administration continues to engage. And we're going to continue to engage because that is what you've asked us to do. The Democratic Labour Party introduced constituency councils, and we know how that ended. The participation was not across the board from the people. It was a slush fund to be able to service their own pockets. We have created what is called a People's Assembly to be able to give ordinary people an opportunity to work alongside representatives and the government to deal with the day-to-day issues within communities. And why? Because we understand that the volume of what we have to do today differs significantly from what my father and others who led this country have had to do. The things that I have to respond to on a daily basis, Dila Bradshaw never had them things to do. He never had no social media. He used to go to a couple of funerals, a couple of weddings, lame in the constituency a little bit, and call it a day. The demands on this administration are unlike any other. And while all hands are on deck, I say to you that you must also appreciate the road, the journey. I keep going back to the journey because you must appreciate the journey that we have traveled. But I give you the hope that the journey isn't ended. My journey hasn't ended. This is 5 years cancer-free. And so long as there's life in my body, I am going to complete my journey with the people who have put me here and the people whom I serve. And I say to each and every one of you, as we approach our annual conference, as we gather in our communities for various reasons, remember the journey that it has taken to get us to this point. I have watched my colleagues age. I don't think I age that bad. I think I get younger. But I've watched them age. I've seen gray hairs come out of there they start to appear on everybody's head. Reminds me of Obama. Obama went in with black hair and came out with a full head of gray. That happens when you work hard. That happens when you are committed to the people. It happens when you have sleepless nights trying to make life better for people. And I'll always say, we do not always get it right. Sometimes we make missteps. Sometimes you might not reach everybody that you're trying to within the party. It isn't that we don't care about the people or we don't want to respond. But we all know sometimes systems are broken. And what we have found is a system that we are trying to repair. I won't talk about the reforms that are needed in the public service because y'all have heard me speak to that a million times. But I know that Prime Minister and the public officers, especially the permanent secretaries and the technical officers, and the members of cabinet have been meeting to address some of the bottlenecks that exist within the system that need to be deconstructed and reconstructed if we are to get ahead of the things that frustrate ordinary Barbadians. So whether it is the delivery of service, whether it is the processes that need to be simplified, we started it. Many of you who needed certificate of characters prior to 2018 know the hell that you had to go through. You also know the hell that you had to go through for a liquor license. We simplified processes, and we continue to do it. The Barbados Licensing Authority, well, I inherited a whole mess when I came. People on strike because of environmental issues, buildings closed, because BRA had concerns about issues with ants droppings in the building. We fixed it, and BRA is back in the pine at this point in time. We fixed it. We didn't come and say, well, it was somebody else's problem. We fixed the problem. We still have things to fix in terms of licensing authority. And I hear the frustrations, and we're working on that to be able to have the technology to improve the services. But you know, when something has been allowed to languish for so long, and in some cases doesn't have the leadership that has been required in order to allow us to turn the corner. And all of you all know for 10 years we didn't have the leadership that we needed. We didn't even have people who were talking to us in the same language that we speak. So you know that if at the leadership we had problems, and then at the institutional level we had problems, what we have inherited is something which we now have to work with people to change their behavior. Because when people get accustomed to doing things a particular way, sometimes you just get hell to show them that there is a different way. I am pleased, though, to say that I've started to see some of the changes. You may not see all of them, but trust me. If I tell you some changes have been happening, trust me on that. We still have a long way to go. But it requires, as I said, the understanding from the public as well of this journey that we are on. We all want for Barbados that we can live in a Barbados that is better than the Barbados that we grew up in. That's my desire. I don't have any children. I have the whole of St. Michael, Southeast, and all the other children that call me auntie. But what I do know is that what I want for this country is that people can breathe a little bit easier. That activities in terms of our projects get off the ground so that people who have skills can be able to be engaged. That contractors can work again and to breathe a little easier. That as we make the changes for mass transit and we transition the Transport Authority and the Transport Board, that we're not laying off anybody, but that we're trying to improve the delivery of transportation service in this country. That we can get the number of buses adequately servicing this country that are needed. I hear the man from Sugar Hill, I read his comments almost every day, cussing about the Sugar Hill bus. Emerson, I hear you, and I feel you. And I try my best to be able to make the changes that are needed to get that service resolved. But when you have a situation where before 2018, all kinds of permits were given away and created almost a privatization of the public transportation sector. And when you have a situation where no buses had been bought for over 10 years, and we now inherit a system where we now have to play cleanup, where we got to make sure that we are able to better service the routes, that we have to take into account where new developments are taking place, where we have to create order. And I say it again, we have to create order out of a disorderly system as well. It isn't straightforward. And it requires that even as we deal with our public service vehicles, the PSVs, and we deal with the taxis, that we are able to better regulate these systems in the interest of the people. Those are the things I want to see, and I know those are the things that Barbadians want to see. We want to see facilities across the communities that are better than what came before. We've said we're going to build 15 mini stadia across the communities. And why? I can tell anybody, sports in St. Michael's Southeast is what has saved a number of young men across these areas. Because once people are engaged, they have less time to get themselves in trouble. And that has been our commitment, to put the lights on the various playing fields, to improve facilities, and to allow people to engage in activities. So as I stand here tonight, people, I want to make it clear that we are hearing you. I am hearing you. I am very clear in my mind what the concerns are from the people. Because you don't stop calling me, so I know the concerns. I get messages, and sometimes I don't even know who the persons are, but they find the number and the message. And I take the time to try to understand the needs of people. It requires us to listen more, but also not just to listen. It requires us to break down some of the processes so people can breathe a little bit easier as well. And that is our commitment to you, the people of St. Michael's Southeast, and also to the people of the wider community of Barbados. I want to say again a special thank you to each and every one of you. I don't take for granted my being here. I don't take for granted my being given the opportunity to serve the people of this constituency and to be able to serve at the highest level of this country. I don't take it for granted one day. But I know that the road ahead is going to get easier than the road that we have just traveled. And I give you the assurance and the commitment that we will continue to listen. Because it is only when we listen that we come to understand what the needs are and how to service it. I didn't come this evening to talk about all the economic issues. Because you all know it. If you don't have money in your pocket, you don't want to hear about the deals that the Prime Minister making and how much money we borrowing. What you want to know is how are we transforming your lives. That is what you want to know. And that is what we have to be on a mission to make sure that you understand and that we break it down for you. When economic activity is taking place in the country, you feel it and you know it. Because all these small businesses and the shops and the operators start to make money. So we don't have to talk above people's heads. We need to get people to understand that this is about being able to bring economic activity to the country, whether by tourist arrivals, whether by investment, to be able to allow people to breathe a little easier in the country. That is why people say we travel too much. It is why we have to travel, because before 2018, it was almost like Barbados did not exist anymore. You go to the islands and people had lost respect for the Barbados that we came to know and to love. Internationally, people looked on us like we weren't punching above our weight anymore. We've gotten back there. And we've gotten back there because of the hard work of the economic team and Prime Minister Motley. And let us never, ever forget that. We have taken tough decisions in this country to turn this country into a republic. And becoming a republic doesn't mean that we cast away everything that has gotten us to this point. But it requires a change in thinking. It requires that we control our own destiny. And that we're able to create a destiny for future generations that is something that we want to shape. That is the Barbados that I want to live in. And that is the Barbados that must give us hope. Where we are going wrong, I want y'all to continue to agitate and to tell me we're going wrong. But equally, where the Barbados Labour Party is going right, do not be afraid to defend and to support the policies. Because I leave you with this. Imagine a Barbados where there was no Barbados Labour Party in 2018. And ask yourselves if that is a price that would have been worth paying. We talk to you, and perhaps we talk sometimes too much. But at least we come and we take our licks and we talk and we engage and we try to fix what we can. That is all we ask of you, to continue to walk on this journey with us. I look forward to those of you attending annual conference the end of this month. I'm not aware that we will have any issues for the leadership of the Barbados Labour Party or any of the positions. So I'm very thankful that this Barbados Labour Party remains strong, that this administration remains strong and focused in what it has been given the opportunity to do. But I want to thank you. I want you to come out on Tuesday night at Highgate Bar. They tell me that St. Michael's Southeast karaoke was lit. It was the bomb. I have some amazing talent in this constituency that is second to none, and I look forward to us showcasing that talent on Tuesday night at Highgate. It is a day during the week, but it is their standard karaoke session, and we are glad that they will be able to host us there as well on Tuesday night. So tonight, again, thank you. God bless. Thank you again to my executive. Looking forward to working with you on the over the course of the next few years. And thank you, Barbados. Thank you to all who have traveled to be able to join us here tonight and all who are listening. Thank you.
Good night again, ladies and gentlemen, but my MP has just made my job really easy because I'm here to give you thank you, but she would have said thank you to almost everybody, so I just want to mention the persons that she would not have mentioned individually. Like, I want to say thank you to Wendy Knight in her absence. She had to leave to attend another meeting, but I want to thank her for so warmly bringing this meeting to a beginning, and I want to say thank you to God for allowing me to say the prayer. And to say thank you to Gail Powers Yard, who did the elections. It was challenging, but we made it through the challenge. That is the typical Barbados Labour Party, agree? We know how to fight the weather. We do it all the time. And I want to say thank you to the newly elected officers. I've worked with them before, and I'm sure that they will continue to deliver, not for the benefit of themselves, but for the benefit of the St. Michael Southeast branch of the Barbados Labour Party, and by extension, the party of itself. So I want to say thank you to the new officers, and I cannot wait to get the opportunity to work with you again. Then I want to say thank you to our MP, who so ably addressed us. She gave us clear, I don't think we can have it any better. She explained to us thoroughly what the country is going through, where we were before, where we are at now, and I'm sure with this party in place, with these ministers, those able-bodied, well-educated, people that have the interests of other people at heart, I'm sure this country will go from one level to the next. We are on our way, and as she said, don't be deterred. We know there are rough waters, but as I said before, we'll weather the storm, we'll hold hands, and we'll go together, and we'll reach our journey. So I want to say thank you to her, thank you to everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out in your numbers to making this meeting a success. And some persons were just asking where our karaoke will be held. Our karaoke will be held over at Highgate Gardens. I'm sure, if not all of you, many of you know where Highgate Gardens is. Highgate Gardens is over at, not Highgate Gardens over here, Highgate Gardens over in Dark Valley. Monroe Road to be exact, as I was just told. And as the MP said just now, we had a wonderful time in our last session, and we know we got the songbirds. We know the songbirds are within this constituency, and we want to take the karaoke tournament back to St. Michael's. We had it last year, and it's on an even bigger scale now, so we want to bring it right back home. So we want the support of all of you to come out and give us your full support on Tuesday night, the 11th of October. I think the 17th, I'm sorry. Tuesday night, the 17th. I'm sorry for that date. Tuesday night, the 17th. Please come out in your numbers as you are here today and give us your full support. We need all the support we can garner. So thank you again. It was a wonderful evening, and I'm encouraging you to drive careful. Those that are driving, those that are walking, walk careful, walk safe, and everybody get home safe. Thank you once again.